Hey, what's up guys, and today I'm going to be talking about the Spiral Abyss, and I'm going to be giving you guys tips and tricks and maybe a bit of a guide on all the enemies, specifically for floor 12 and 11, going through each chamber and each half, talking about which teams and which elements are going to be super good against everything, and hopefully helping everyone get through this Spiral Abyss, which is probably the most difficult one of recent times. So when you get into the Spiral Abyss, obviously we have to look at the Blessing of the Moon. So you will obtain one extract stack after obtaining a shard created through the crystallization reaction, which is Geo with any other element. And this extract stack will increase the damage dealt by your active character by 8% for 10 seconds, max stack of 3. And then also, when characters possessing 3 stacks obtain more crystallized reaction created shards, they will unleash a shockwave, deals true damage to opponents. Shockwaves created this way can only occur 3 seconds. So in general, having Geo characters on your team is going to be proving very beneficial for just overall kind of damage dealing, as well as for floor 11 Spiral Abyss ley lines. Okay, so let's talk about floor 11 first. Geo and physical characters are going to do the best in this. So if you have Albedo or Eula, Razor, Zhongli, Noelle, all those characters that have, or maybe physical Keqing even, physical characters and Geo characters are going to be your strongest overall because of this 60% damage boost, so be sure if you have a good one of those to use them. But in terms of utility and kind of helping you throughout the run, Anemo is going to help you the most in this run, or in this floor. Floor 11, Anemo is going to be the biggest help for you. If you have a Sucrose that is well built, she will save your life on this, seeing as Chamber 1 is a defense. Again, Venti and Kazuha are going to be the stronger picks, but Sucrose is going to be very good as well. And just throughout all the floors, that is going to be the general gist, and the general theme is that Anemo characters are just going to be a massive help, purely because it's a lot of ads that go around. But specifically moving into Chamber 2 with the Frost Arm Lawachel in the first half here, as well as the Hydro Mimics in this, the first half of the final chamber, you're going to want Cryo, Electro, or Pyro. Anything but Hydro for the first half is going to be the biggest help, so take that into consideration. As you also have some Spectres here, you might want some ranged units. For me, the most optimal character for this is something like a Yanfei with a Zhongli shield, seeing as Yanfei is the best at dealing with Spectres and their Hydro Mimics, so that is Vaporize right there, so that is a strong reaction. And then the second half of the final chamber is super easy, don't even worry about it, it's just some defenders and cruisers. Ruin enemies are obviously always easy. But for floor 11, there's not really much to talk about in terms of difficulty. You're just encountering some really basic enemies here and there. The last part here can prove difficult and time consuming if you don't have the correct characters, especially with the Hydro Mimics, but overall, don't expect too much raw skill difficulty. It's just more time consuming, mindless time consuming nature-y stuff. Moving on to floor 12 though, Chamber 1 is just a bunch of Rift Hounds. The only thing I can give as a tip for this is you need a lot of single target damage, because they spawn in like groups of 1 to 2s, maybe even 3s I think. So it's either you can go for massive single target damage and kill them one by one, Hu Tia Jingcho works, Eula worked, Fischl with any of her kind of synergies. I don't really use Fischl. But it's the Thunder Craven Rift Hounds. They're not the best enemy made, but they can be dealt with if you go and just like know their attack pattern. So if they rear up, they're going to go for a charge. Again, if they have another rear up mechanic, which means they're going to do a tail swipe. If they disappear, if they teleport, they're going to appear behind you, so dodge away. So they have some simple mechanics. They just have a lot of HP, so you need a lot of damage. Geo characters aren't going to do much for you here, seeing as they apply corrosion, so the Zhongli shield or Noelle shield isn't going to do phenomenal here, as well as there's no more ley line disorder, so you're not getting that 60% physical or Geo buff here either. Chamber 2 is slightly easier in my honest opinion. It sounds and looks bad, but in my honest opinion, this sounds and looks pretty easy. So the first half is just 2 Geo Vishaps. Very simple, very straightforward. If you've ever farmed the Pale Flame domain, then this is exactly it. The second half is all 3 Magukenki's, Lone Gale, Galloping Frost, and Mask of Terror. Now, I thought this was going to be super hard, but from my experience on my Asian account, this is not the case. It's not as difficult as this fight was when it initially released a while back. I think they might have done some tweaks, but I don't really know. Overall, take this as the little tip. The Lone Gale Magukenki is the ranged Magukenki. The Galloping Frost is melee, and the Mask of Terror is kind of a hybrid. He'll use range attacks when you're away from him, and melee attacks when you're near him, so take that into consideration. To do this the fastest, you're going to have to kill all 3 at the same time, or 2 at the same time, and then funnel 1. But if you're just trying to complete it, then killing 1 by 1, so Frost first, then Lone Gale next, and then Mask of Terror last. That is how I did on my Asian account, and I got 2 stars. so I'm satisfied with that. But yeah, this is not the scariest floor out of all of them. Chamber 3 is the scariest floor, sadly. Now, this is level 100, so the final floor of or final chamber of all the spiral abysses is always going to be the hardest chamber. But this one's hard for a number of different reasons, is that you have the Thundercraven Rifthounds along with the Ruined Cruisers and Defenders in the first half, and in the second half is the Rockfond Rifthound with the Rockfond Rifthound Whelp and Ruin Guard. Now, the difficulty comes from the Rifthounds being 100, level 100, having a plethora of HP that exceeds regular means, along with the Ruined Cruisers and Defenders that also have a high amount of HP and mechanics that can prove quite annoying, like the Ruined Defender's Shield, which blocks all damage from the front. The first half, though, is not that hard, especially when you compare it to the second half, where the Rockfond Rifthound has the Geo Aura. Now, for those who don't know what the Geo Aura is, just imagine pain, and that is the Geo Aura. That's all I'm going to say about it. And then, obviously, the Ruin Guard. The second half is going to be the biggest struggle because it's Geo Aura plus a lot more high HP enemies. But overall, you're not encountering a variety of enemies, just these enemies have a lot of HP and they're going to be pretty painful to deal with. So bear that in mind, that you just need a plethora of damage, like usual. But now that we've explained and talked about it, let's just get into some gameplay. Okay, so now going into floor 11, we're just going to speed run through this, kind of mentioning key points as we do the actual run, but take into consideration geo damage dealt and physical damage dealt is increased throughout all of floor 12. So if you have characters that are those elements that are strong, I recommend you use them. They'll be doing a hefty amount more damage. For me though, this is the team composition that I came up with. It just synergizes well, in at least my playstyle, and I like using these characters because they're all just strong, heavy hitters. And for floor 11, that's essentially all you need. You don't need any kind of specific element, you just need hard-hitting characters. So without further ado, let's just jump into floor 12 really quickly. Now, as per usual, pick the card that gives you the most damage. Don't try to go for anything over the board with like some sort of weird min-maxing. Just pick the blue ones, they're the best options. Now, like I said earlier or in a previous video, the first one here is a defense. Now that you can really kind of take that how you want. I, for instance, did assume that defense was completely removed from the game. I didn't think they were going to add it back again, but it's here. And I will say one thing, it's actually not as hard as you might think. Now, the reason for that is because of the enemy choice. This is the one thing I want to commend miHoYo on, is that when they added the defense back, they made the correct choice of enemies. It's just some basic Healy Churls here, nothing difficult in any way, shape or form, so there's no reason to complain. You're going to have an overall easy time on the first half here with just some Healy Churls. Now as for the second half, well, the same thing can be said. It's just a bunch of treasure hoarders. Obviously, animo characters are going to play a massive role in this. If you have some good ones, they're going to be a lot more useful. But if you don't have any animo characters, just kind of dealing with the the treasure hoarders as fast as possible is going to be the best thing. But in general as well, the ranged units here don't target the monolith. You don't have to worry about that. At least in my experience, they don't target the monolith. And a lot of the melee options or melee ones also don't target the monolith. There is Kairagi here, so be careful of that they will hit the thing and deal a hefty chunk of damage to it because they have a lot of instant damage. And we're fine. We barely got through it, but you know, it is what it is. In terms of actual enemy choice, that is a very good choice that they did. Obviously, the Kairagi proved difficult, but overall, the defense may sound difficult, but it's not as bad as it was in the early days of Genshin Impact. Quick thing, always take crit rate and crit damage increase. It's the best buff you can get, so always take that one. And second floor, you're going to be encountering, again, very basic enemies for this one. Slimes is the main premise of floor 2 here, or chamber 2 that is. Doesn't really matter what element you have, just make sure it's not the element of the slimes. So a neutral element works. And the final element is Hydro, so in general, if you just run Geo, you'll be pretty good. If you run Physical, you'll be good, but also Pyro Hydro will serve you just fine. And the last thing here is a Hydro, or Lava Churl, which, again, not difficult in any way. Definitely not difficult when you got a good old Raiden Shogun to deal a bunch of damage. And boom, that is the first half. And I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, I just did reset that floor. So we're just gonna give that another go. You know what, that is a fine floor. I just don't have any Pyro characters on my team, so we're just gonna, yeah, we just redid it, so it's all good. It's all good. Now this is going onto the floor where we need a speed. That's fine. Kind of used the wrong ability. I love waiting for cooldowns. I really do. And we got 10 seconds to kill this guy. Can we do it? Yes, we can. That was kind of getting a bit too close for comfort, but hey, it's fine. It's fine. So we did do it, and that floor is easy. Or that chamber, sorry. I get confused with the chambers and floors. But that chamber, pretty easy. Kairagi, you need a lot of damage, they got a lot of HP, but again, you can do it if you just have damage. That is the general premise of the whole Spiral Abyss. It only gets a bit more mechanical once we get to floor 12. Again, taking any blue buff, that's pretty much the best thing. In Chamber 3, you can take one of the grey buffs, but it's not really that amazing either way. So I just recommend you guys continue taking the blue buffs. And on this floor, like I mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of Spectres. Now this floor is not enjoyable in any way because you're going to be taking a lot of damage from areas that you don't know where from, because the Spectres are a really bad enemy. So be careful on this one. A shield character will go just really hard because, well, you're taking damage from random areas of the game. So I recommend some sort of shield character. Noelle is doing me just fine here, so bear that in mind when you're attempting this. Now, Tartaglia is not the best option here. You got a bunch of Hydro Mimics now. I recommend Pyro characters for this floor, but sadly, I did not have any Pyro characters that I was willing to put on this floor, so we're just sitting here with a bit of a Raiden Shogun Electro build. But really, anything other than Hydro will do just fine. Electro works, Cryo works, and you know, everything that isn't Hydro will do you just fine right now. Seeing as Raiden Shogun is actually like kind of doing an amazing job here, Electro works just fine. Hydro does not work, don't use Hydro. And the final floor here is just a bunch of Ruin enemies. These ones are beyond easy, in my honest opinion. So it's just 4 of them. You just need damage. There's not much mechanics to these guys. There's a handful of AoE things that they can possibly place on the ground, but overall these guys take an abundance of damage and will not give you guys any trouble. And there you go, that's what I mean. They died in 2 Zhongli meatballs. That's pretty good in my opinion. And that is floor 11. Now we're going to go over to floor 12, where we're going to have to do a bit more min-maxing and a bit more optimization. So let's just jump over and do that. So taking in consideration the enemies of floor 12, you've got in the first half 2 Geovishaps on the second floor, and then the Magukenki on the second. You got a bunch of Thunder Rift Hounds here, and on this one you have the Geo Aura in the second half of the third chamber. So taking all those things into consideration, I've got a bit of a team comp, so let me just make that and then we'll get back to it. So here's what's happened. In terms of team, it's the same characters, but 2 characters have been swapped. I did swap out Jean to put her at the top to get Animo Resonance, and I put Noelle at the bottom for Geo Resonance. That's just because, well, Geo Resonance is a bit more of a damage booster and it works a bit better. So this is the team composition we are going with. Again, you have different characters available to you, so you won't be able to emulate the same thing. But this floor, because you have a lot of Rift Hounds, you're going to need some sort of healer. You're going to need it. Zhongli will not be able to carry you throughout this whole thing. And you're going to need a lot of either single target damage or very consistent AoE damage. I've gone for the single target route with Hu Tao and Jing Cho for the Magukenki boss, as well as Zhongli for the final stage second half, so I can shield out that Geo Aura for some amount of damage reduction. But now let's just jump in, show what it's all about, and kind of just talk about it and my opinions on it as we go. So first of all, crit rate, crit damage, if you know, you know. And it's going to start off easy here. You're going to start off with just 3 of these Rift Hound whelps. They're going to be super easy, nothing difficult in any way, but after this it's going to level up to a massive Rift Hound who has a plethora of HP. So as we kill this last one here and he jumps up into the air an annoying amount, we're just going to get prepared to fight 2 difficult ones. So here we go as I break my skull against these guys. So this first team here has taken the route of having a lot of AoE damage, so they can just deal with all the enemies in a moderately similar fashion, whilst the second team is taking a bit more of a single target kind of focused approach by having Hu Tao Jing Cho deal with the enemies all one by one super quickly. Now it depends on how you like playing and what characters you're available to yourself, on which one you can do, but both of them will work just fine. Will you get 6 stars or 9 stars on all floors? Potentially, if you play correctly, but I definitely know for a fact that on this account I'm not getting 9 stars on a floor, floor 12 here, because, well, I just don't have the potential, I don't have the power, I don't have the characters, I don't have the drive, I don't like the enemies to begin with, so all of that is playing a factor into my enjoyableness of this and also my success factor. But now onto the second half, we're pretty much getting the same enemies, just of the Geo variant. And same thing, we kill a bunch of enemies and a few more spawn after that. All is well here. We're just going to actually top up by healing with Noelle because we dropped a bit of HP. But yes, the one reason that you will notice as to why a lot of people are going to be failing this floor is because it's just the enemy choice. The Rift Hounds are just extremely badly designed enemies. They are not enjoyable to fight and in any way, so that is the biggest reason you'll see people be failing this floor. It is just not an enjoyable experience to verse this enemy type. And we've pretty much spent like about, what, 5 minutes already in this whole thing, and it's kind of just felt like arse. So, you know, take it how you will. You can like the enemy, you can hate them, but you can't deny that they take way too much time, and something's wrong here. So, but that has been the first kind of chamber of floor 12. On to the next painful experience. Gonna take some elemental burst damage here, and this is the floor with the double Geo Visha. And for this one, it's literally, if you've done the Pale Flame domain, it's the exact same thing. You won't encounter any sort of difficulty here, in my honest opinion. They're both already like kind of getting pretty low, and then with the Raiden Shogun ult coming in, we just pop them out like that. So this one is just very mechanically easy, and numerically it's just kind of high in health. So overall, not going to be difficult in any way, shape or form, in my honest opinion. And there you go. 2 Geo Bishops is super easy, but if you don't have the damage, you will fall behind. But now we fall into the Magukenki. Now, I'm probably going to just be focusing on doing this one, but I'll try to explain as much as I can. But essentially, it is just the Magukenki fight split into 3 different actual entities. And so, let's just jump in and do it. I'm going to be focusing on the Galloping Frost one here, though. That is the first one we're going to try to kill, because it is the most annoying. Galloping Frost, he does leave this massive cryo field here that I do recommend you get out of. It does whittle away at all shields and HP whilst you are in there, so definitely don't stand into it too long. And whilst you fight the Galloping Frost, the other ones will be just doing all their mechanics as per normal. Now, the most optimal mechanic is to actually just kind of stack these guys on top of each other and use massive amounts of AoE to actually deal with it, but you know, that is the risky maneuver as you are, you know, combating all the bosses at the same time, and also in the same proximity, so be careful of that in doing that mechanic. But I recommend, if you just want to clear the actual floor, then just fight the bosses one by one, seeing as they are all different kind of types of bosses. One is melee, one is ranged, and one is like super ranged or something like that. Without a doubt, you will not be like 3-starring this floor if you do this method of just fighting it one by one, because, well, we're already at 7 minutes and 30 seconds and we've only killed 1.5 of these guys. But honestly, if they're going to be adding bosses like this to the Spiral Abyss, I'm not even going to be concerned with 9-starring it, because it's just going to be a waste of time. It's too much hassle for the amount of rewards that you get, seeing as you don't even get 1 whole roll's worth of Primo Gems. And there's the 3rd star gone, but honestly, in terms of actual time, we're not that far off. If my Hu Tiao Jingqiu was probably a bit stronger, we would have had a pretty easy time, but alas, that is not the case. We have a weak team here, and we're just going to struggle out here to kill this last guy. And is he dead with that elemental skill? He is, and there you go. That is a 2-star on floor, or chamber 3, floor 12. Now for this next one, you know, I probably will rage quit halfway through because I hate the Geo Aura with a passion, but let's get into it. Floor 12, chamber 3, level 100 enemies, and they are all Spirit Hounds, or whatever they're called, Rift Hounds. And let's get started. One thing to take away from this is that don't kind of be in any way disheveled if you do not manage to 3-star this one. I will definitely say that the enemy choice for floor chamber 3 is pretty good. Like, if I'd overall like floor 12 if the first room didn't have the Rift Hounds and the Rift Hounds were only in the second room. But we did manage to kill these ruined enemies here pretty quickly. But now that we're jumping over to fighting the Rift Hounds here, this is going to be a different length of fight. This is going to be a extremely long fight from now on. So as we, you know, grab some popcorn, you know, this is going to be a long one.
1 eternity later.
Oh, this whole experience is so unenjoyable. Oh my god. I do not know how MiHoYo does it, but they managed to make 90% of this game just very unenjoyable. I think, if anything, that needs a congratulations on how a company can make a game very unenjoyable, but also enjoyable at the same time. It really blows the mind. But as we're closing here on first half of Chamber 1, we're going to be dealing with this guy here. And we're moving on to the final one with the Geo Rift Hounds, or the Rock Fond Rift Hounds. Obviously having, I think, them first, and then a Geo Construct, or a Ruin Construct, or whatever it's called. But essentially, it's the same situation as the previous half, is that you're just going to be fighting Ruin Hounds with a Geo Aura. Now, this is probably the part that I was mentioning that I probably just will stop doing, because I do not feel like dealing with the Geo Aura, but also these Rock Fond Hilichurl, whatever the fuck these things are. So I am getting already a bit kind of annoyed at this because the Geo Aura is such a detrimental thing to this whole game's enjoyment. And especially when you combo it with the Rift Hounds, it is just not a fun experience for anyone who plays the game. And the boss and the enemy does 3 dashes in a row, and I'm meant to enjoy the game. That is very interesting, very, very interesting that I'm meant to enjoy the game after the enemy dashes 3 times or so in a row. Teleports around. Honestly, this Mihoyo really needs to learn that their enemy design is the only thing like stopping their game from being a 10 out of 10 game, especially when you take consideration into the end game. Even though the end game is not actually there, literally the enemy design is what's throwing this game under the bus. Yeah, that's all I can really say about it, is just if they fix the actual enemy design, then the game becomes a 10 out of 10 in my honest opinion. But because just fighting any amounts of enemies in this video game just kind of doesn't really inspire any amount of enjoyment. And after those 2 Rift Hounds or 3 Rift Hounds that we kill, we get probably the easiest enemy in this game, the most telegraphed enemy in the game. And with that all being said, this has been the Spiral Abyss essentially. These guys will die as soon as my Hu Tiao's ability comes off cooldown. Boom. That is the Spiral Abyss essentially. You have just a bunch of Rift Hounds for no reason, just kind of adding time consumption and difficulty for no reason. And then as the conclusion, you have just 2 Ruin Guards that die within about 2 seconds of each other. So hope you guys did enjoy this Spiral Abyss. This is just kind of doing a playthrough of it, kind of just showing what it's all about and just the general player's experience. If you did, like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay notified when I upload. And I hate this Spiral Abyss. Hope you guys hate it too. If you don't, talk about it in the comments below. I want to hear your opinions on the Spiral Abyss because this is god awful. Anyway guys, see you later. Peace out and enjoy your days.